In the heart of the whispering savanna, where the baobab trees stood like ancient guardians and the Harmattan winds carried secrets from one village to another, lay the quiet hamlet of Ebony. It was a place of red earth paths, thatched roofs bowed under the weight of dry seasons, and evenings alive with the crackle of firesides where elders spun tales of gods and ghosts. But for Aisha, born under a reluctant moon to a family scraping life from stubborn soil, Ebony was a cage of sideways glances and unspoken cruelties. Aisha's frame was slight as a reed in the river's bend, her skin etched with the sun's unyielding kiss, and her features, sharp cheekbones framing eyes too deep for idle chatter, drew whispers rather than warmth. The women of Ebony, with their laughter like rolling thunder and bodies that swayed to the drum's call, pitied her in voices laced with superiority. "See Aisha, the wind's forgotten daughter," they'd murmur as she passed, her wrapper faded from too many washes. Men, those broad-shouldered farmers and herders, averted their eyes as if her gaze might steal their vigor. She was the shadow at the market's edge, trading meager baskets of ground nuts for salt, unseen until it suited someone's jest. Yet beneath this veil of neglect burned a hidden flame, a gift woven into her blood by the ancestors' whim. On her mother's final breath, as fever claimed her in the dim hut, she had clutched Aisha's hand and whispered the truth. "Child, any man who binds his life to yours will rise like the Nile in flood. Wealth will flow to him as surely as dawn follows night. But guard the secret, for hearts hunger more than they love." Aisha had nodded, tears carving paths down her dust-streaked cheeks, but in her soul she sought not gold or glory. She yearned for a hand that held without tallying, eyes that saw her spirit's quiet fire. Love, unadorned and fierce, was her unspoken prayer. Years folded upon themselves like palm fronds in the rain. Suitors came not to her door, but to the arms of fuller-figured maidens, their betrothals sealed with goats and brass bangles. Bachelors, even those with empty granaries, skirted her path, muttering of ill omens. "Marry Aisha," one had scoffed over millet beer, his voice carrying on the evening breeze. "I'd sooner wed the hyena's howl than court misfortune." They knew nothing of the fortune she carried, only the surface they deemed unworthy. Aisha tilled her small plot of yams alone, drew water from the sun-baked well at dawn's edge, and in the hush of her solitary nights hummed melodies her mother had sung, songs of rivers that remembered and stars that forgave. Hope, that stubborn vine, refused to wither entirely. It bloomed unexpectedly during the Harvest Moon Festival, when Ebony transformed into a tapestry of firelight and rhythm. Drums thrummed like the earth's own pulse, skirts swirled in vibrant arcs of indigo and ochre, and the air hummed with roasted maize and fermented sorghum. Aisha lingered at the fringes, as always, her presence a ghost amid the revelry. She watched from beside a flickering torch the shadows her faithful companions, content to let joy wash over her without claim. Then, parting the crowd like a gentle current, came Juma. Tall as a young acacia, with skin like polished ebony and eyes that held the steady calm of deep waters, he was the village's quiet carpenter, his hands calloused from shaping wood into cradles and stools. Known for his unspoken kindness, mending a widow's door without fanfare or sharing tools with the young, Juma moved with purpose towards her. The murmurs rippled, elbows nudged, brows arched, a few chuckles escaped like escaped sparks. What folly draws him to the reed girl? "Good evening, Aisha," he said, his voice a low timbre that cut through the din without effort. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting trickery, but his gaze held steady, warm as hearth embers. "Me?" she replied, her words tentative as a first raindrop. "You," he confirmed, a smile tugging his lips like sunlight on leaves. "The festival's brighter with your quiet here. May I sit?" They spoke as the night deepened, first of the stars' patterns, then of the wood's whispers under chisel, her dreams of a garden that bloomed year-round. Juma listened, truly, his head tilted, no flicker of judgment crossing his face.
He asked of her favorite river bend, the one where she gathered wild herbs, and shared how carving a flute once saved him from a boy's loneliness. For hours the world narrowed to their circle, the drums a distant heartbeat. When the fires waned, he rose and offered his arm. "Let me see you home. The paths twist in the dark." From that ember a flame grew. Evenings found Juma at her threshold, bearing a gourd of fresh palm sap or a carved comb from his latest work. Aisha would set out clay bowls, and they'd perch on woven mats beneath the acacia spread, trading stories until the sky bruised purple. Laughter came easier to her, a melody she had long forgotten. Their bond wove tighter. Walks along the river where he skipped stones and she named the birds, shared silences heavy with unspoken promises. Love unfurled, not as a storm, but as roots seeking soil, deep, enduring, chosen. Their union, announced under the full moon's gaze, sent shockwaves through ebony. "Juma, the steady one, tethered to Aisha? What spell has she woven?" the women hissed at the grinding stones. Men scratched beards in disbelief, wagering at a passing fancy. The ceremony was simple: vows exchanged before the elder, a shared cloth of kente, and a feast of herbed goat under starlight. Whispers trailed them like smoke, "He'll wake from this dream soon enough." But Juma held her hand firmer with each barb, his thumb tracing circles of defiance on her palm. Aisha for the first time walked with her chin lifted, her heart a drum only he could play. 2 moons waxed and waned before fortune's hand stirred. Juma's carpentry, once a humble trade filling orders from neighboring kraals, surged like a sudden flood. Chiefs from afar commissioned thrones and masks. Traders bartered ivory for his intricate panels. His workshop expanded, apprentices flocked, and soon his coffers overflowed with cowries and cloth bolts. Ebony buzzed with envy. How does the quiet carpenter amass such bounty? Spirits favor him unduly. Jealous eyes turned to Aisha, and in hushed conclaves by the baobab, her secret slithered free. A healer's loose tongue, perhaps, or a rival's spiteful gleam. The tide turned swift as a viper's strike. Men, who once crossed the path to avoid her, now lingered at her gate garbed in their finest, bearing fowls and honeycombs. "Aisha, wise one," they'd coo, "your light deserves a brighter hearth." The bachelors of yore, those who vowed celibacy over her shadow, now knelt with pleas scripted sweeter than dates. But she was Juma's, her heart sealed, and their overtures met polite deflection. "My joy is spoken for," she'd say, her voice steady as river stone. Then came the night of shattering skies. Lightning clawed the heavens, rain lashing like vengeful whips, thunder a roar that shook the thatch. Aisha stirred from fitful sleep to an empty space beside her, the door ajar, wind howling through like a thief's lament. No trace, no bloodied cloth, no dragged footprints in the mud, only the chill void of absence. Dawn brought frantic searches, through bush and bramble, along the river's crook, but yielded nothing. Rumors festered. River spirits claimed him for unpaid debts, envious kin spirited him to shadowed realms. Aisha's grief was a silent forge, hammering her days into hollow routine. She tended their home alone, the workshop's echo mocking her. Nights curled against his unreturned scent. 2 harvests passed in this barren vigil, Ebony's pity curdling to spectacle. With Juma's vanishing, the village elder invoked custom. A widow unbound might seek anew, lest sorrow root too deep. But Aisha's secret, now village lore, drew suitors like moths to flame, not for her quiet grace, but the gleam of promised gold. They queued at dawn's gate. Farmers with empty silos, herders with lean flocks, even wanderers from distant hills. "Choose me, Aisha, and watch our union birth empires." The once mocking maidens seethed from afar, their braids tight with resentment. What potion does she brew? Our curves go unwanted while she hoards fate's favor. Among the throng emerged Kwame, the silversmith from the ford's edge. Lithe and silver-tongued, with a smile that bent wills like heated metal, he wooed with flair. Forged pendants etched with her name, tales of distant markets where his wares fetched fortunes. "Your sorrow ends with me," he vowed one twilight, his fingers brushing hers as he offered a comb of twisted wire. "I'll craft a life of silk and song." Aisha, weary of echoes in empty rooms, the ache of unshared dawns, relented after moons of his patient siege. Their vows were swift, beneath the baobab's crook, and for a breath harmony reigned. Kwame's forge blazed anew, orders poured from caliphs and cloth merchants, his silver-graced necks from savannah to sea. Granaries swelled, laughter returned to their hearth. But as wealth's bloom peaked, so did shadows. Late nights stretched to absences, his eyes glazing over shared meals. Then, under a merciless noon, truth erupted. Kwame fled with a trader's daughter, voluptuous and veiled in allure, their silhouettes vanishing toward the trade winds. No farewell, no remorse,